Come to Focus on Liberia. My name is Dennis Jai, and we are broadcasting from Atlanta, Georgia. In a special way, we want to welcome you to this long weekend edition of Focus on Liberia. This Saturday, we're having a special discussion with a group, the Grassroots Alternative Movement. Grassroots Alternative Movement. We're going to be talking to the leadership of that group. Gentlemen, welcome to Focus on Liberia.
Thank you, Dennis. Thank you for having us.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Dennis, and thank you to FOL and for everything you do for our country. Thank you. We are happy to be here this evening, the afternoon, this morning to different parts of the world.
Thank you very much for the opportunity. It's really an honor to be here.
All right, we are honored to have you two talk about your group. And you recently had a press conference. You wrote the House of Representatives calling for the postponement of the referendum we all are excited for. So we are glad to have you to explain why, to talk about your organization first and explain why you are taking this bold move that you are taking, calling for the referendum to be postponed. I hope, I don't think Mr. Emmanuel will like you guys tonight. But again, ladies and gentlemen, I want to welcome all of you from across the globe. This is Focus on Liberia. We are discussing with the Grassroots Alternative Movement. They are a group based in the Diaspora and also Liberia. They're going to be discussing with us the purpose, their goals, their aims and objectives, where they hope to carry this group. And they already started making news by calling for the postponement of the highly anticipated 2020 referendum. So by way of introduction, I want to welcome for the first time on this platform, Dr. Emmanuel Urey. Dr. Urey, welcome to Focus on Liberia.
I'm so happy to be on this platform. I'm a big fan of FOL, Focus on Liberia. In fact, the name is captivating. I listened, I followed your show, I followed the rest of the guy on the show. And being here today is an honor. I'm very, very happy that I can join you guys to foster peace and security, prosperity for Liberia. I'm happy to be on the platform.
Thank you. Normally, when you enter the house, we offer you cold water, to say that our hearts are as clear as this glass of water. Welcome and let's enjoy the show. Wonderful. Next is someone who has been here for once or twice, Mr. Laraamand S. Nyonton. His friends call him Comrade Laraamand. Mr. Nyonton, welcome to Focus on Liberia.
Thank you very much, Dennis. It is once more significant honor to share the stage with the esteemed leaders of GAME and also to be on your platform once more. I'm no stranger to this platform.
And last but not the least is Josiah F. Joekai. Is that fire?
Joekai can be fired. Yeah, that's Flomo.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, Mr. Joekai, welcome.
Thank you so much. I've been here before, twice, and I just want to say that it feels good to be here as a guest. This is the right place to be to discuss critical national issues.
We do our best, and
that will contribute to the forward march of our country, Liberia. And so to be here today as a guest to discuss this important national issue is really an honor for me and the entire Grassroots team. So we want to say thank you for the invitation.
Thank you so much. So by way of introduction, I know we'll speak briefly because we are talking about the Grassroots Alternative Movement. I know each of you represent, the leadership. So by way of introduction, let me see. Let's start with, again, Dr. Urey. What's your role on the Grassroots? Is it called GAM?
Yeah, we call it, GAM, G-A-M, Grassroots Alternative Movement. I serve as the national chairman for Liberia. I am honored to serve as the first national chairman, founding member of this movement, and a voice behind this movement, along with all the other voices you will hear, and even those that are not in studio today, men and women who are coming together for the betterment of Liberia. So I'm honored to serve as the national chairman for Liberia that cover both Liberia and the African region. Thank you.
Josiah, what's your
Well,
role?
I am the executive chair of the Grassroots Alternative Movement for the Diaspora, responsible for the United States and all of the other continents. So it's, again, once more, a great opportunity to be here to talk about why we are established and then why we're calling for the postponement of the pending referendum. Thank
When
you.
you say the diaspora, what does that cover?
It covers the United States, it covers Asia, it covers Europe, you know, and south of Canada. That's
Okay,
what
not Ghana, Guinea, or something.
the diaspora inclusive.
Oh, okay. I thought you were leaving that piece with Emmanuel. But let me go to Mr. Nyonton.
Dr. Urey is the executive chair for the organization in Liberia.
Oh, in Liberia.
Yeah, in Liberia.
Laraamand, what's your role?
Well, I serve as the vice chair for communications and outreach, basically responsible for creating contact with the outside body, ensuring that our messages and programs are well articulated. We also work on outreach and recruitment, and we'll go into that in depth in terms of our membership drive and what we're working on. But yeah, at the moment, I serve as the vice chair for communications and outreach.
So you'll be the right person for me to start with to tell me what is this grassroots alternative movement?
Well,
and don't forget to include alternative to what?
well, GAME is a social justice and political advocacy group. And our goal is to fight for a just Liberia, one that is based on equitable distribution of our natural resources, that is based on fair play. And the conversation about forming this organization started some 2 years ago, out of a necessity to help contribute and participate in the ongoing national conversation, and to also help shift the governance paradigm. And so we decided that as much as we can have this conversation, and not wanting to add on to the many emblems or coders that are already existing within our political space, how do we form an organization that represent a catalyst, an entity that unite our people and reconcile our people at the same time? That no matter what political persuasion you are from, no matter what region in Liberia or tribe you belong to, you can be a part of a broader entity that push the agenda of all Liberians. And so against that backdrop, we decided that we'll come together, we'll amalgamate ourselves, regardless of your status, regardless of your class, whether you are a professional Liberian or whether you are a grassroots Liberian, whether you are in the diaspora or in Liberia. We want to bring everybody together to unite around a common agenda. And the vitality of that debate has been increasing since we started that initial conversation 2 years ago. We are proud that as an institution, we have been fully registered in Liberia and also fully registered here in the United States. We've been leading series of efforts to strengthen the institutional base of our institution that is based on 5 main or primary objectives in the areas of reconciliation and good governance, in the areas of promoting fair play, in the areas of also promoting fighting against corruption and equitable and promoting equality among our people. And so,
yeah, Mr. Nyonton, we'll come to the objective. First, want to really understand in the simplest term, you said you are social justice, political, and advocacy organization. So let's take those 3 words and really explain to the basic sixth grader, to a Liberian, saying when you say social justice, political, and advocacy organization, what does that mean?
So advocacy is at the core of our program and engagement at GAMEF. some of the things that we advocate for is from a broader perspective, from education to health, to the fight against rape, to gender inclusiveness and all of that. So basically, we want to create an institution where we become diverse for the versus Liberians. In terms of social justice, it's the code of our existence, because we stand for justice and the rule of law in Liberia. We know that the rule of law is part of the cardinal pillars of, for good governance, and in a way that we have to promote justice for all, regardless of who is involved and who, what are the class or what are the from a particular region or what have you. So we have been involved in that, and that has been the core of our existence.
I will come back to you for the history, but let me go to Mr. Joekai. Even though I asked why was this group set up, but if what is the problem that you were trying to solve when you all came together to form this group, knowing that you have other advocacy, social justice groups? What was that gap that you tried to fill?
So the Grassroots Alternative Movement is a broad-based institution that looks at these core issues. We talk about justice in Liberia. That's a long-standing issue. We talk about enhancing our democracy, and election is at the heart of democracy. That is a long-standing issue. We want to look at the economic issues that we have in the country. That's a long-standing issue. And so how can we contribute to our national recovery and development process, taking into account these critical elements? We thought that we should build an institutional framework, not a group of people coming together as usual, like regular Liberian organizations, but an institution that has the ideology committed to ensuring the recovery of our country. We will contribute in every sphere, but from an institutional perspective, not an individual-based kind of organization. So that makes GAM the alternative, makes it different. So we don't just want to be an institution criticizing and joining the noisy conversation. We actually want to be an institution that will be able to identify issues and be able to derive means by which we can resolve those issues. We can deal with them to help solve the problems of the Liberian people and improve the image of our country. So that makes us the Grassroots Alternative Movement. That makes us the alternative.
And you didn't see anybody doing that, so you decided to do it? Or were there people, that you look at, or organization that you look at and say, well, we have similar objective? Or how is it that you are different from everybody else that is doing this?
Like I said, if you look at the historical perspective of organizations in Liberia, basically they are established on different purposes. Either there is somebody with the deepest pocket that they gather around, or there is just one or two persons who, from the populist perspective, based on populism, they establish. And so GAME wants to move away from that. Like I said, to have a policy-oriented organization, a policy institution. Say, for example, we are looking at the postponement, calling for the postponement of the referendum. The way other people approach it is different. We're not going to be criticizing the NEC just loosely, or criticizing the government of not having the funding, at the appropriate time. What we want to do is propose something that will be genuine to address all of these issues, that will be able to look at the different facets, funding, to look at capacity from the institutional perspective, or from the organizational perspective, or individual perspective. We want to make a proposal that will be policy driven, that the government will be attracted to, that the institutions concerned will be attracted to. That's the kind of solutions we want to provide to help contribute to solving the many problems that our country have. Thank you.
Let me go to Dr. Urey. Dr. Urey, I read on your website about your objective. 1, encourage genuine peace and reconciliation amongst Liberians and in the diaspora. promote the impartial application of the rule of law and good governance, promote economic recovery and national development efforts, promote good citizenship and productivity, fight corruption, and promote the equitable distribution of resources. How you plan to do that?
Well, let's start with that second part that talk about social justice, that talk about equality, that talk about when you travel to the Temple of Justice in Monrovia, you see that lady. The lady is standing with a skill in her hand, says that, let justice be done to all men, and we say to all women as well. That's the beginning point. This issue of injustice, political injustice, economic injustice, it boils down to lack of leadership. It had led the country to where it is now. So the alternative also to Josiah's point is to change that. It's to fundamentally change the governance system of the country. A system that is based on who know you, a system that is based not on the merit system, but on a system that if you have connection, you get the job, and even you're not qualified. A system of corruption where you have formal system, but the informal system of corruption is undermining the entire fabric of the society. So what we're embarking on is so much big that in fact, when you think about it, you cannot get your hand around it. But we have fit so much in institution that when you start an ideology, and this ideology is not tied to you, you're trying to build a cradle of people who, even when you are not there, they can take on this mantle and continue carrying it on. Everything we're seeing, transformation we're seeing around the world, has centered on an ideology, not necessarily an individual. And so that's really...
Dr. Urey, I don't want to slow you down, but how do you plan to achieve those objectives? How you plan to go about it? What's the capacity? What's the resource level? How you want to do this? I know it's very colorful, and I'm excited to read them, but how do you hope to achieve them?
Well, we start Rome was never built in one day. We start with a baby step, but a step that takes us forward, a step that is continually heading to the right direction. We might have one or two pitfalls, but we continue moving in the right trajectory. So for that reason, those of us who are part of it, we set example of who we are and say, in fact, what we're articulating, can we live the life that we're articulating as an example, right? So that people will be gravitated towards us in terms of good citizenship. That's the beginning point. So we ourselves have to be transformed, because if our hands are dirty, if you are dirty, if your hands are dirty, you cannot bathe another person. So we have to set that example. So we constantly examine ourselves to say, these are mega projects, mega proposals, especially the country we're dealing with. How do we deal with this? With prayer, we'll go above, but we start an example. And those who coming towards us are seeing the example. That's one step, one baby step to get this. Another one is, how do we influence politics in Liberia? How do we build citizenship? How do we make people to know the Constitution, their right, civic education, to do the importance of their vote? When they're going to vote, what are the things they should take into consideration? Because those who we elect into offices, they make bigger decisions that affect us. And so the more we have good people in elected offices, the more we'll be able to change the country. So it is a strategy. And this strategy, part of it is really geared towards galvanizing, identifying people and supporting them to elected position, because we know, we trust them when they get there, they're going to be speaking on behalf of the people. So this is how we change. We're starting it, and it's a movement that have started now, been 2 years we get coming to public, because we wanted to make sure we have all the groundwork laid out. We are pretty confident now that we are at the point where we can go public, and this is how we come in public with the institution.
Good. And I'm coming to you, Laraamand, with the history question. But it looked like Mr. Joekai wanted to say something. Joekai, whatever you wanted to say, let me ask you this question. Give me a specific example of how you intend to promote the impartial application of the rule of law and good governance.
Okay. Firstly, we are going to embark on civic education, civic engagement will be one of our primary areas of focus. So we want to make sure that citizens are fully aware of their rights, roles, and responsibilities. They don't see governance as a favor, by their government, because under the Constitution, they are the custodian of the power. They hold power. Power is inherent in them. They institute the governance of their choice, giving them the mandate to deliver. And so we want to make sure that in the delivery of that mandate, they as citizens, they have role. They have role to hold their government accountable to them. They have a role to contribute to the governance. And if the government does not create the necessary environment for them to play that role, they have a responsibility to call the government to action to do that. Citizens in Liberia, for the most part, are not aware of these roles, these rights and responsibilities. And this is fundamentally required in the development of any nation. The citizens have to be informed, they have to be aware of those roles, rights, and responsibilities. Because of that long-standing gap, development is just almost impossible, because whatever a government official done for citizens in the country is seen as doing them a favor. That's their own resources that are being used. Advancing in technological advancement is impossible, because the government feels that they can do it at will. They are not compelled to do it, but under the laws, they are compelled to do it. And it is only an informed citizenry can hold them accountable to make sure that there's technological development, that Liberia can come on par with its contemporaries. So that's one basic thing that GAM is committed to doing, and it's part of our program area.
Thank you. Let me come to Mr. Nyonton on the history. I don't know how you tell me how old is the group, and when group come together, we come and talk about group dynamics now. We have these stages, you know, the various stages of the group, or the forming stage, the storming, the norming, and all that good stuff. Where are you now? So walk me through the history of this group and where you found yourself at this point.
I think we are a little past the forming stage. When we started, it was about basic consultations, identifying people with like minds that would believe in the alternative cause. And we identified people who believe in Liberia as well and had integrity to defend at all costs. And so we went through that process. We named the institution initially the Grassroots Alternative Movement for Economic Freedom. And at the second stage of our consultation, we realized that it is not just about economic freedom that we are organizing ourselves around. There are a whole host of issues, burning issues, urgency that Liberia has and that this generation has to confront. And so the idea of limiting the institution based on the fight for economic freedom is a limited idea. So we went back to work and rebirthed the institution. We created a new name that was based on consensusship. And here we are with the Grassroots Alternative Movement, which is a social justice organization that fight for all of the rights of the Liberian people. During the rebirth process, we thought that it was important to set up a leadership because an institution without leadership is an institution without direction. So the entire membership went to work and nominate people in their roles. And this is what we have. In the Diaspora, we have Mr. Josiah Joekai as the executive chairman. We have Mr. Boyd Johnson as the vice chairman for administration and operations. I'm serving as the vice chair for communications and outreach, and Mr. Anthony C. as the CSO, the chief secretarial officer. And in Liberia, we have Dr. Urey working with a team of strong, committed, and passionate Liberians who are serving in the similar capacity and structure as we have for the Diaspora team. And so, yeah, that was how we went through the different stages. But we've just passed the forming stage. If we have to take the group dynamics into context, we might be around the norming stage. Right now, we are testing our idea and philosophy now to the public in terms of the things that we truly believe in and the things that we want to advocate for in terms of our own developmental approach to the national discourse. So this is where we are.
Let me just add,
I like
if
your
I could just
responses.
add.
Okay.
Yeah,
Before you add, I want to bring another. And before, as you add, just tell me also how you're going to get money to do all this big stuff you talk about.
Absolutely. That's exactly the point I was going to contribute to make. We also are guided by a set of laws. We have our Constitution. It was drafted, it was reviewed, it was adopted, and it was a broad-based adoption process involving the membership. And if you look on our website, the Constitution is there. We are very transparent in our dealings. All of our actions and activities are guided by our Constitution and bylaws. The institution is formally registered in Liberia to operate fully under the laws of Liberia. And we have everything in place that is required for a vibrant institution, such as the one we are building. So I just wanted to contribute to that. On the issue of finances, we have our program set up. So we will be funding our programs based on programmatic activities. We will be developing project proposals. It's not anything that we're going to be paying money for. We'll be developing programs. Dr. Urey has a very strong background in program management. I also do. With the different institutions over the last 15 years, I've been working, also helping to raise money. I am a fundraiser. I have raised money for institutions like the Elections Commission in Liberia. I was able to raise $500,000 in 2011 from ECOWAS, a special project that I wrote to support, our civic education process in the middle of the election. I was able to raise close to $25,000 for the Special Girls Education Initiative at the Ministry of Education when I work under the UNICEF arrangement through project proposal writing and management. Also, Mr. Johnson, who is in New York, is the vice chair, work for the United Nations systems, also with a very strong program background. Dr. Urey here also, he has his fingerprints in Liberia when it comes to our cultural activities, raising money, managing projects. So these are the kind of resources that you have in the institution. So we have set up our programmatic areas. We have education, honor education, we have civic education, which would be a serious engagement, and we have the academic component of it, where we'll be looking at our educational system, the education ladder. Then it's, as you know, it's referred to from early childhood development all the way to tertiary education. So we know what many of the issues are. We'll also be contributing in that endeavor. So we are going to develop a financial policy. The policy will include how the policy has been drafted. We just need to have the entire body to adopt it. Yeah, it's going to include how we'll be raising funds and everything. It's transparent. Yeah.
Thank you. There's a question on how to become member, but you'll answer that later. Dr. Urey, let me come to you. Let's talk about the vision. Let's say within the next 10 to 20 years, if everything worked perfectly fine, where do you see this organization?
I think it is a larger question about where do you see Liberia, because the organization is owned by Liberians, but the goal is to better Liberia. We can tie the vision of the grassroots alternative movement to the vision of Liberia.
All right, so let me rephrase the question. So if everything is perfect, where does your vision for Liberia will be? What do you want to see happening in Liberia if God had granted you everything that you wanted?
So I want to stress a little bit in terms of a long-term vision. So let's talk about in the next 27 years, when we shall be 200 years. So in the next 27 years, Liberia will be 200 years, right? Because we had our 173rd independence celebration. So in the next 27 years, how do we want to see Liberia? I mean, we want to see Liberia as a middle-income country, which is possible, which is if we work really hard. We want to see the free and compulsory primary education be enforced, and not just on the book, wherein students don't have pen, they don't have fitting classroom, teachers are not paid well, no educational material. We want to make sure that the laws of Liberia, not necessarily to write too much of new laws, but the existing laws we have, they are properly enforced. And because when the laws are enforced, we see the country will change for the better. So in the next 15, 20, all the way to 27 year is a vision. The 27 years, we want to see a middle income country. We want to see Liberia and not the Liberia we see today. We want to see a Liberia where we have the maternal mortality rate is to a minimum. So we don't have a lot of mothers dying in hospital because we don't have good healthcare system. And everything that you talk about, there's just a lot we can talk about. But in other words, we want to see a higher standard of living in the next 27 years. When Liberia should have turned 200 years, we want to see a completely different Liberia than we see today, and it's possible.
Thank you. Let's conclude on this whole the organizational part, so we can go into your press conference. So let me ask Mr. Nyonton. Someone listening to us here want to be a part of you. Some people say you're trying to form new political party, but how can someone be a member of your organization? What is the requirement?
Well, we have 3 categories of membership. We have full membership, we have associate membership, and we have honorary membership. So our full membership category is open to all Liberians. We don't discriminate. Once you are 18 years and above, you are eligible to become a full member of GAME. Our associate membership, are for Liberians who are under 18, but have won some cap of consciousness and willing to also be nurtured and be taught and inspired. And so as soon as they reach 18 years old, they can take on full membership. But it's also for non-Liberians as well. People who we interact with who have projects in Liberia, who are passionate about development agenda, can also become an associate member within the institution. And our honorary membership is based on the institutional preference. So we bestow that on any individual that has been contributing to the work of GAME, have also been contributing to the overall, the broader perspective of Liberia's developmental agenda. So we identify those people and bestow honorary membership to them. But the website is www.gameliberia.org. You can go on the website and sign up, and the CSO will definitely respond to you, and then we'll get you engaged with our activities.
So to be a member, you have to be a Liberian.
Yes, you have to be.
How do you determine that this person is a Liberian?
Well, we do our own internal vetting, and so based on that. But again, once you're a Liberian, you have to show proof of your Liberian citizenship, your passport, your voter registration card, and those are things that that go along with it. You know, so in Liberia, those who are in Liberia and are interested, that the minimum identity requirement that you have to show to prove that you are a Liberian or not.
Let me just add a bit of caveat on that in terms of how do you determine somebody is Liberian. We are quite flexible on this. This is a social ideology movement. So the 3 categories of membership he listed, meaning anybody can become a member, basically. But the honorary membership is the one who we identify a person and confirm membership on them. The associate membership, the honor age people, and so, but the full membership, Liberians. And we talk about Liberia in Liberia and Liberia in the diaspora, right? Quite open. So there's not too much, and we don't want to hammer that and say this is because we're going to be talking about the referendum in a minute. So there's a tension about dual citizenship. Oh, when somebody had dual citizenship, if you are a Liberian, you have a Liberian origin, join our movement, go on the website and register on the movement. We're trying to attract as many people as possible to the ideology, right? The moment we can get more people to the ideology, we are sure of succeeding. So I just wanted to add that there.
All right.
So Dr. Urey, let me just probably conclude on the membership thing. In addition to what my 2 colleagues have just said, it will also interest you to know that You have to go to our website, like Laraamand indicated. We have our Code of Allegiance. You read it, and then you have to give consent to the Code of Allegiance before even you can submit your form, because you have to fill out the form online. And basically, that's for Liberians in the diaspora. Liberians in Liberia, we have a form, a special form that they are filling out, because not everybody, we have access to the internet or the website in Liberia and other parts. So our people take the form, people fill out the form, they have the contact details that we can follow up with them. So the process is very flexible, like Dr. Urey said. And that is what we do. So it's open. You have to go there. We don't even question your nationality until it comes into question. So it's not something that when you go, before you fill out the form, you have to show proof before, but the Code of Allegiance is there. And when we are doing our investigation, after you sign up, and your form comes to us, you get automatic response. And then at that time, we can go through the form to investigate whether or not you're a Liberian. So I just wanted to add that piece.
Thank you, because I hope you're not discriminating.
Not at all.
All right. Ladies and gentlemen, if you are just joining us, we are in conversation with the Grassroots Alternative Movement. They call themselves the social justice advocacy group. They are both in Liberia and also the diaspora. The group have come up with a press statement. I watched the press statement, and you are calling for the postponement of the 2020 referendum. That is also being circulated in Liberia. Is on your website. So let's go into that. And you have a lot of questions here. They want me to open the phone lines quickly because they want to know why. So let's start with you, Mr. Joekai. Why do you want referendum 2020 postponed?
Right, Dennis, the Grassroots Alternative Movement, GAM.
Before you continue, I heard Riverside Pro say Wambodiki is going to apply to become member.
Member of GAM?
Yeah.
No. You can stay on the platform and say no. So we have fight on him. We already have a fight on him.
Yeah.
All right. So I thought I should read that, but go ahead. Why you want the referendum postponed?
Right, Dennis, thank you. The Grassroots Alternative Movement GAM a week ago officially submitted a request to both houses, to the Liberian Senate and the House of Representatives, requesting for the postponement of the December 2020 referendum. We believe that when the referendum and the senatorial election are held together, the senatorial election definitely is going to take away the significance of the referendum. It's going to make it meaningless. It's going to take away the enthusiasm and the purpose for which it is supposed to be held. The special senatorial election now, by all means, is the top priority discussion right now. The highest focus right now is on the senatorial election. Political parties and candidates are focused on canvassing for the offices that candidates are seeking, compared to canvassing for issues that we would consider abstract issues for now. Because even as we speak for now, the Elections Commission has not even been able to develop the symbols, neither talk about the scripts that citizens supposed to learn and know whether or not to vote for those issues. So there is nothing about the referendum right now materially that will move voters to vote for any issues. So the focus is going to be the senatorial election. It is the senatorial election. And Liberians historically, if you just take the recent past, 2011 referendum, similar thing happened. The 4 propositions, when the Elections Commission tabulated and counted the results, the 4 propositions fell flat, none recorded the 2/3 required votes, none of them. The only way proposition number 4 passed was because one of the political parties filed a petition against the Elections Commission at the Supreme Court for the counting procedure. and the Supreme Court ruled that they should set aside, in fact, and delete the invalid votes. That's the only way proposition number 4 passed. And it did not even meet the real mandate of the Liberian people, because of the 1.7 million registered voters that voted in that referendum in the election, only 615,208 voted in the referendum, which is by far lower than half of the total registered voters. It is because we do not have that consciousness in the country. Liberians to actually know the purpose of having a referendum, which is very significant.
Mr. Joekai.
Yes.
It looked like your number one reason for calling for this postponement is because the senatorial and the referendum are held together. And you were saying it's going to take away, the focus. Who's responsible for that? I mean, if you have two things that you're supposed to do and you're not paying attention to one of them, is it my fault or your fault?
So if you go ahead and have both of them combined, and then you have a very low turnout to the point that none of the 3 propositions pass, you are going to waste resources. Right. That would be a precious waste of time and resources. And you are not even going to focus on the senatorial election, which is supposed to be a litmus test to the 2023 election. This is critical to enhancing our failing democracy. That is why GAME is advancing that the best thing to do is to shift focus to the senatorial election, since not even much resources have gone into preparations for both events. And GAME is not only calling openly or loosely for the postponement. GAME is also advancing the legislature that giving the number of efforts that have been made to revise the 1986 Constitution, which by all accounts have serious issues. GAME is also advancing that, hey, if you postpone this referendum in a year or 2 from now, you can make a decision to revise the Constitution comprehensively, so that we don't keep amending portions of the Constitution in bits and pieces when the Constitution still has numerous issues. And your question would be, how do you know that it has issues? Dennis, we all know that the Ellen Johnson Sirleaf administration constituted a Constitution Review Committee.
Yeah, and I will come to that.
Yeah, so that is a critical component of it. I'm bringing that dimension because we are advancing also that is good in the future for you to do a comprehensive revision of the Constitution and not to do it in parts. And that would be a very good move to improve the laws, because for you to have improved governance, good governance, the laws have to be appropriate. You need to have the adequacy of the law.
So make me understand, what must happen before we can have this referendum? List for me the things that should be the prerequisites and co-requisites before a referendum happens.
Absolutely. Before you have referendum, you must make sure that there is a national education and information dissemination mechanism put in place appropriately, not just on voter education, which we have had occasionally in our country. That mechanism will continue to educate the people on the Constitution that guides them as a nation, from which this constitutional revision is supposed to be done. That has to be in place. You need to make sure that you hold the referendum as a single issue so that there can be complete focus on the referendum. There is no distraction at all by any measure. And by that, we mean that the resources must be available so that the timing of the referendum is right, and that you are able to educate and inform the people to move them to vote, because each of them is supposed to receive 2/3 votes as required by law. So you need to put those mechanisms in place. And not just to say that you want to combine a critical election with a critical referendum because of cost. While it is true that the concern for cost is legitimate, we also have to understand that having cost-efficient referendum election combined in an unprepared...
Hold on, Josiah. We are having some feedback there. Laraamand, is it from your end?
No, I'm on mute.
Then you can mute yourself. Go ahead, Josiah. Because what I'm trying to get at here is, you want us to postpone this, do you have a timetable in your mind to say, well, let's postpone it to next year, July. So by that time, A, we're going to have the education I'm talking about. B, there are going to be no senatorial election. It's going to stand alone. C, so list for me things that must happen and what time frame are you looking at for this to occur so that the referendum can be, because we had for the dual citizenship referendum.
Right, Dennis, GAME is not going to give a specific timing for the referendum. We will leave that to the government to make that decision. But we have a time frame that is flexible enough. If the legislature considers our request to postpone the December 2020 referendum, it has from now to 2022, before the 2023 election, to make a decision on holding the referendum as a single issue. That is possible under our laws. And there should be no question even about the legal implication of how and why they can postpone. They can do that. They can do that by instituting a resolution and having two-thirds votes to suspend or to postpone the referendum. And they can plan it better. That's why GAME did not just say postpone and leave it open, but GAME said postpone and at the same time consider the option of planning for a comprehensive revision of the Constitution so that we don't be coming back into bits and pieces to do amendment of certain provisions of the Constitution. And the reason why I brought in the dimension of the CRC just before you intervene or you interrupted is that CRC process was undertaken and completed. Now, if you look at the chemistry, about 16,000 views were collated. About 52,308 issues were identified. And of the 52,308 issues, they were able to collate 25 propositions from the 1986 Constitution. Does that not tell us that our Constitution has an issue that is supposed to be revised comprehensively and we don't need to do it in part? It is from the 25 proposition that was submitted to the legislature that they've been trying to reduce the 25 proposition until they brought it to 3. Meanwhile, there are 22 issues still pending. So Kim is saying that the wise thing to do, if we postpone this referendum to stand as a standalone national critical decision-making event, you should as well consider the option of revising the Constitution comprehensively. Now you are saying what should happen first. What should happen first, I will repeat, that the government can take time to mobilize the resources, because this is going to be the government and partners initiative, both technical and financial resources. The partners will also want to have the time and to have sufficient reason why they should put money into revising the Constitution that they shouldn't come back. That would be a good cause. The government can take time to mobilize the resources. The government can take time to plan with the citizens in terms of adopting the decision to revise the Constitution, because they need to adapt it to two-thirds vote in the legislature. When they agree to that, then the Elections Commission will have sufficient time to be able to do consultations across the country, to derive, the strategy on how do we engage citizens. And they can only have one issue for citizens to vote on, to either accept or reject a new constitution. That would be easy compared to going compared to having a referendum with more than one issues. That's a complicated issue.
Josiah, here's the
in an
thing.
illiterate society
The CRC that you referenced, millions of dollars were spent, right?
Yes.
It took time and it's somewhere collecting dust. So don't you think it's prudent that we can take this? What's wrong with taking baby steps to say, okay, since they were not able to do this, do you want us to go through that big process that may never happen? Or we can take baby steps for now and say, well, we can take one issue at a time. What's wrong with that?
I'm not adopting the comprehensive revision. It's very possible. We already have a job done. We already have a data available that we can use as a baseline to do that work. And then number two, the baby steps may also cost us much. There's a high probability, a high likelihood that many candidates will not canvass for the propositions. Political parties will not distract their focus from the senatorial election. This is critical. The senatorial election is critical in several ways. It's critical for the political parties to show strength towards 2023. It's critical for the country to show that their election management system has matured to be able to deal with the challenge ahead. The 2023 elections that is so critical, that is so anticipated. And we can lose focus here. That's why GAME is looking at this critically, and GAME is ready to assist in this endeavor. Right. So we're not just saying we are ready to assist in the loose faction. These are people here with elections management, technical expertise and everything. We are ready to do that. But we are calling on the government to see this as a national and passionate call to safeguard our embryonic democracy. That's the way we can proceed with it.
All right. Whose role is it to provide, and any of you can pick this up, whose role is it to provide the information and education on the referendum? And you were saying that is not done yet. So if that is not done yet, why do you think postponing the referendum will make any difference? If the guy who was supposed to do it, 2 years ago have not done it, postponed it for 1 year, what difference is that going to make? What's going to change?
So okay, Dr. Urey, you want to come in?
Yes, I wanted to come in. I wanted to come on a particular question, who responsibility is it? We all know that it's the responsibility of the government and the citizen, of course. But let me just give a little bit of historical perspective to what we're talking about here. This is not the first time a referendum or referenda have been conducted in Liberia. We have had several of them. Actually, I was trying to research this issue. I came across 17. We can group them into two separate groups. From 1847, when the country gained its independence, all the way to the Civil War. The reason why it is that way is that from 1847 all the way to 1980 is almost a one-party system. It's a small government centered around American Liberians' lack of inclusion. So we can group them that way, and then we can look at 1980 all the way to 1986 and 1989, a period of instability, a period of a kind of dictatorship, and then we can look at the Civil War and then the post-Civil War. We can look at the various referenda that have been conducted, about 17 of them, and what in total, and what I found out is that only 4 of the 17 have ever been combined with a general election. About 13 of those have been stand-alone referenda that have been conducted. So we are not saying this just out of the blue. There's a historical fact about it that out of the referenda that have been conducted, we see that majority, overwhelming majority of them have been a standalone. And then we see that all of them nearly passed all the way until 2011. And 2011, this is the time we have a form of democracy after a civil war. And the very first one we attempted, it failed massively. And there was a lot of money spent for that. The reason why, a lot of people will argue that if you combine, if you separate, then the country does not have money to do them separately. We argue also that if you combine them and they become a failure and they don't pass, the country is even losing more money, because well, then what is it?
All participants are muted and they can unmute themselves.
What is the essence of doing this if all you're going to fail anyway, and you're going to be spending all the money to try to do it if you're not doing it properly? So those are the reasons why we're saying that it should be separated. The government is responsible along with the partners. But the issues that are going to be voted are critical, right? They're very critical. Do you really want them to fail, or do you want to be running to the Supreme Court all the time? No. All right. It is clear that people have started some form of campaign. I don't know what is the campaign time or not, but people are mainly talking about their candidacy of the senatorial election. The referendum, the propositions in the referendum, they are issue-based. So Josiah would tell you as an election expert that there need to be sign as to when you say dual citizenship, what is signed to identify dual citizenship and what is the reason for dual citizenship. Citizens need to be informed that the current constitution, this is how it treats dual citizenship, but what the problem wrong with dual citizenship as it is treated in the current constitution, and what are the reasons that we need to change it, right? Those information got to go in the very clear and uncertain term for a civilized and educated citizen to be able to vote upon it. You go and collide that with election, senatorial election, where every candidate is fighting basically for himself or herself and the supporters, and those issues are maxed. So when people even get to the voting booth, they don't even know what to vote for, and some of them will just not even vote for it. So we saw that clearly in 2011. It began the failure. Do we want to repeat the failure again? The answer is no.
Dr. Urey.
Yes, please.
Here's my question. I mean, it's been failing, but here is what you said in your press statement. You stated that the country does not have the capacity or a national mechanism in place to conduct, and I like when you say a sustained civic education. For example, teaching the Constitution as per Article 10 of the Liberian Constitution. My question is, how long do we have to wait for this sustained civic education to happen or to be actualized before we can ever have this referendum?
So what we are saying is, what we are saying is, as you know, we introduce ourselves as a social justice advocacy group. You advocate one at a time. You don't take all the issues and put them together. It's difficult for people to understand it. We are asking the lawmakers to postpone. But the postponement is not indefinite, and it should never be indefinite. And we're not going to sit and allow it to be indefinite. We're trying to say, you as a government and us as citizens, let's give ourselves time to look at this. One, we talk about when you put them together, as we've seen it now, lack of resources and confusion in the citizenry is likely to fail because the two-third majority as mandated by the Constitution may not be actualized. It's a risk we're taking. We don't want to run that risk. So to your question, this is not indefinite. We'll be coming back and we're clearly saying in your wisdom, show when you can do it. But preferably before the 2023 election. Let's get this clear out of the way. And like you said, the CRC did well, and we can base on our work and get any one time. We're not going back and ignore the work that was done.
Dr. Urey, what I'm really talking about is, in my village, they say the time the rabbit was on top of the hill, a foot not reach to heaven. You're in the valley, you expect your foot to reach there. So if we have not done this all alone, we have not had this sustained civic education, you expect them to do it now? With maybe economic crisis and all that?
So let me come in here. Dennis, this is simple. We are trying to say that fundamentally, Liberians are not aware of their responsibilities under the law. They are not aware of their roles as citizens under the law. I said from the outset that they treat the role of the government as a favor towards them, which is the direct opposite. So we are trying to say that there has never been, it's not just about today or the current jurisdiction.
Right.
We are saying that there has been a long-standing gap of civic engagement. The citizenry have not been engaged sufficiently as people who are supposed to know their roles as citizens, their responsibilities as citizens. And part of it is this amendment that is supposed to be done. To know the significance of this amendment that is supposed to be done, they don't know it. We are trying to say that there has never been a national mechanism in place for them to know these things. So we are not saying that that mechanism, that holistic national mechanism framework should be in place before the referendum is held. What we are trying to say is that instead of having 2 months or 3 months to holding the referendum along with the senatorial election, postpone it and hold it as a single issue within 1 year or 1 year and a half time. That is time enough for the NEC to be able to derive a national strategy through which is able to effectively engage with citizens for them to fully understand the revision of the Constitution, the significance of reviewing the Constitution and revising it so that it is appropriate to improve governance. It is possible for us to do that within the space of a year and a half or two, if all the government chooses to do that. So when we do that also in that Constitution, Dennis, you may not know, when I was Civic and Voter Education Director at the Elections Commission, I was able to do a proposal for us to conduct a survey on the understanding level of citizenry of the electoral jurisdiction. How well do they understand elections and its significance? So when UNDP funded that project, the survey was conducted. The first recommendation in that report that was submitted to the government and that has not been acted upon was for the establishment of a National Civic Education Commission. That commission will have the responsibility to be able to educate the citizenry on all aspects of the Constitution, because it is even consistent with Article 10 that provides that the Constitution shall be published, shall be disseminated, and its principles shall be taught in institutions of learning across the country. Yeah. It is by law. That's what GAME is saying. Revise the Constitution. Let's uphold our law. Who knows that even in the new Constitution, there will be the establishment of a National Civic Education Commission. So maybe people like Dennis, other civil society actors can take on the responsibility through that commission to perpetually educate the people. And we will have a different kind of citizenry that will be patriotic, that will be productive, that will be contributing to these kind of national conversations. And when we make the decision will have the full mandate of the people because of the level of participation. So that is what GAME is talking about here.
I'm bringing in a caller, but before the callers come in, let me ask two questions to Mr. Nyonton. Mr. Nyonton, what has been the reaction since you submitted to your petition or your request to the legislators? That's one question. Then question number two, which is, I'm not trying to say that you're not serious, but in a way, are you just doing this for the fun of it, or you are serious that anyone is going to really listen to you? You are muted.
All right. So we have been receiving calls positively from civil society organizations commending GAME for the step taken. Again, this is an institutional approach. We've written the two houses and we CC copy the National Elections Commission. Citizens across the country have also been weighing in terms of their positive response to this effort. So this is not a charade. I think it is a sensitive national issue. If you go back to history, in 1985, some of the environment that created the necessity, that created the need for the rewriting of the 1986, the writing of the 1986 Constitution was as the result of the 133 years of one-party rule. Since 1986 and the years leading up to our Civil War and even after, we have seen different forms of constitutional interruptions. We have seen how our Constitution and basic provisions within the Constitution were either disregarded as a result of the civil conflict or as a result of the coming into effect of peace agreement or peace accord. We are saying that we've passed the Civil War era. We are now in post-conflict Liberia, and the need to have a review of our Constitution, the 1986 Constitution, cannot be more than amplified than we are saying, than we are now calling on. So the referendum does not really have to happen in bits and pieces. We have to have a holistic process where we can review the Constitution. We can look back into data and tap on the work of the CRC and make that happen. Now, that's something I wanted to talk about, the 2011 referendum.
Before that, the feedback from the senator and from the legislators.
Yeah, I wanted to talk about that. I wanted to talk about that a little bit. I know you are very specific about that. This is no joke. This is not just another posturing by another Liberian organization. That's why we talk about our nature and the serious-minded people you have involved. Our call to the legislature is no joke. We are serious about it. We are engaged with them as we speak to you. We are engaging with them on the request. Some civil society organizations, we've already started engaging with them, and we'll be coming out with joint statements on this issue. There is one powerful elections-related, democracy-related institution in Liberia, the Center for Development and Elections Management. These are democracy development gurus. You're talking about former Commissioner Jonathan Widow is a member of it. You're talking about former Chairman James Fromoya. You're talking about Blamosie from the ILO, from UNDP. They are all part of it. Right now, as we speak to you, they are engaged with USAID on these very electoral issues that they feel are consequential, for the future of our country. They have also engaged with us. See them, they have engaged with us and they congratulated us for our call. They have indicated that they are going to do a follow-up on our call to also write the legislature, that is both houses, the Senate and the representatives, the House of Representatives, to ensure that they can respond positively to this call, because this call is in the right direction according to them. So this is no joke. We are engaged with them. We're not going to rest until we can get some serious feedbacks from our own legislature. They are the direct representatives of the people. They should be able to respond to this critical national call.
All right, so Mr. Nyonton, complete your thoughts, and then I can bring in our first caller.
Yes, I'll give a reference to the 2011 referendum. You had three basic issues that were highlighted from the judges, increasing the age of the judges from 70 to 75, the residential clause, and all of that. Now, Josiah made mention of that. Only one of it passed, and it did not meet two-thirds majority. The fear of going, depending on this whole idea of we don't have capital, we don't have money, and so we have to do this and combine the process together. That was the same kind of fear, and that was the same kind of narrative we heard in 2011. We are saying that now, many years later, since 2011, we are faced with this same situation in 2020. Cost, as legitimate as it may be, should not be the primary reason why we have to combine both the senatorial election and the holding of the referendum, because there's a simple logic to this. If you went to the data store and you have to buy a copybook for $5, and you do not have the $5 to buy that copybook, and one is being sold for $3, if you're buying this copybook one at a time, you'll be spending $6 for that copybook, as opposed to if you were just buying all two at the same time for $5. So I think it is necessary that the process of referendum, which is also coinciding with the idea and argument that we're presenting to the national legislature for the revision, the holistic revision of the Constitution, it has to go together, and we can give ourselves the timing the next year or two to properly plan and review the Constitution in its entirety, so that the Liberian people cannot be faced with that scenario year in after to vote on pieces of proposition in order to amend our Constitution.
Thank you. If you are just joining us, this is Focus on Liberia. We are discussing with the Grassroots Alternative Movement, GAM for short, a social advocacy, justice advocacy group. They are calling for the postponement of the 2020 elections until certain things are addressed. Now, let's have our first caller on the line.
The referendum. We are calling for the postponement of the referendum.
Yeah, the referendum, sorry about that.
Yeah.
And the one that has a single issue. We have our first caller, Mr. Anthony Gay. Mr. Gay, you are live.
Thank you very much. I don't know how much money I might call that to be able to, there's a lot of things that I've been talking about, and if I can be given 3 minutes, please, Mr. Job.
Let's make it 2.
Okay, 2, no problem. That's enough. 120 seconds. There we go. I want to say good evening to the gentlemen in studio, especially my senior comrade Joekai in there. And look, guys, I want to commend you first of all on the initiative. That's a very brilliant initiative. I already registered on your website, just so you know. That one of the things that really encouraged me. You posted on your website and it's functional, it's working, and I try it and it's working. Now, let's get to the matter here. The circumstances with the proposition on the ballot, yes, I want to agree with you guys. Liberians are not aware, even including myself. We need detailed information to make rational decisions. However, where I disagree is when you say we cannot have both of them. For this period now, we cannot have both. But going forward, if the people are properly educated on the matter, you can have both. Because I see many African countries, not even the developed world, but many African countries, specifically the African coast, most of their amendment to the Constitution are done through referendum, but they have national debate weeks and weeks and weeks for the people to know. So right now, with this current one, yes, I'm in full agreement with you guys on postponing it, because not many people even know the Liberian Constitution, let alone a proposition that is already before them. And for me, what I've read so far with the citizenship, I disagree. I'm so limited as a Liberian on the dual citizenship proposition that is proposed right now. I'm so limited. I will be so limited if passed, and I don't think that should be so much restriction on the citizens. That is my opinion on that. Second thing here, I want to speak about. I'm also against forming too much institutions that are not functional. We got so much institution. There's a new institution right now in Liberia called the LLA, the Liberian Land Authority. It's no longer honor lands and mounds any longer. LLA now is taking a portion of the land, and then the mining thing is a separate. So many institutions have been created over the past decades, and they are not functional. We need functional institutions in our nation. It's not how many we have, but we want functional institutions. So, so my senior comrade, Joekai, I don't think you answered the question. What was the response from the Liberian legislature? Did they receive your letter and say, "Oh, we received it, we're reviewing it," or did they say, "Oh, we have received it, but we have not, go over it yet"? What sort of response have you guys have received so far? I know you made the submission, and I don't know if they have ever responded to you and say, "Oh, yes, we have received your communication, we're looking over it, or we'll get back to you X, Y, and Z time." Why not? You did not respond to that question that Jai asked. That was one of my questions, and I want to commend Mr. Jai for asking that question as well. Are you back?
Thank you. Yeah, well, Anthony, rest assured we'll ask all your questions. But Joekai, hold your thought. Let me bring in one more caller before, just jot that down. Let me bring in one more caller. That's Mr. Jimmy Eastman.
Hey, gentlemen, thank you all for coming on the show. And Ja, again, a very interesting show. Your points are salient. But I have a question. It sounds as if there are a couple of things you gentlemen are calling for. One of them is we need to educate the masses of the people about what the Constitution is, and going over all the tenets of the Constitution, and that they may take a while, as you well know, is a long document. Okay. Number two, I hear you calling that we need a constitutional review. All right, because there are many things that are conflicting, and if this is not, and the Constitution is not just something aspirational, but we want it to be affected, then we have to take out those things, those clauses that we cannot implement. But the problem comes when choosing that group, that body that is going to review the Constitution. There are several methods they've tried, but it has all kinds of political complications. There's some types that the selection of people is by the executive. Sometimes it's the executive and the legislature. Sometimes it's the legislature and the judiciary. So my question to you, because this is going to be so critical, how do we go about selection of those people who can influence our future immensely? How we will go about choosing the individuals that will participate on that, and do you think, most of all, do you think we have the political will to put a just constitution together?
Thank you, Jimmy. Let me take one more caller before my panelists come in. I think Martin had a comment here, but he's calling in now. So let's listen to Martin. Martin, you're live.
Yes, good night, panelists. I just want to thank you guys for the discussion. And I have a couple of questions. I'm going to keep it very short. Regarding the referendum, I just want to know, should it also be the responsibility of the many political parties that we have in Liberia, for or against, to educate members on the referendum or voting right? Or should it just be left to the election commission or the election, whoever dealing with the election? And another thing here is, I want us to look at the big picture. I'm looking at this referendum as a way to incorporate us into the system legally. Just having that right to play, being able to write, being able to be a part of the system. I know some of us can do it. A lot of my friends, we all discuss this, and they say, oh, but now you can still go, you can get a job, you can do whatever you need to do. Everybody know you're Liberian. We understand that. But now we just want to be a part of the system. From my opinion, having this referendum pass will give us the right in the diaspora to organize ourselves, to vote whoever is in our interest, to pass whatever thing we would like, meaning to help. If, let's say we want to go back to the system, as you guys were saying, you know, instead of doing it bits and pieces, doing it as a whole. Now they will give us the voice to be able to propose some of these things by voting in the right people who will seek our interests. So I look at the referendum as a way of allowing us to play legally, you know, based on our current law, to play legally and be a part of the system. Guys, we can use this to vote in whoever will speak in our interest, whoever we see we deem capable of speaking into our interests. That's how I see it.
But,
you know, with all
Martin,
this job, even when we talk about government
Martin,
job or not limiting us, yes.
Yeah, before let me interject something here. You sounded like we in the diaspora we know better, you know, voting wise than the people that are there. Is that what I'm hearing?
No. That's not what I'm saying.
Okay.
I'm saying right now we don't have any right to vote. So we can wait later, we can wait whenever, you know, but I think passing this referendum, and if we are allowed to vote, all right, if we have the ability to vote, we can vote from in the diaspora, and we can vote those who will be in our interest, those who will seek our interest to even change, you know, and amend the Constitution and to do some of the things that we want.
Okay, good.
Right now, we cannot do it. We cannot do it as a group. You know, a few of us can sneak into the country and do it. But now, if we have the right to do it as a group in the diaspora where we don't have to go to Liberia, then I think we will have a bigger voice. That's how I'm looking at it. Not to say we have the right. We are more educated on voting than the people in Liberia. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying this referendum will give us the right to play legally, you know, on our system that we have.
Understood, Martin. I
Thank you.
I just thought I could be on my people's side small and push.
Yeah, but I rather want this group to talk about if when it comes to educating our people on election, be it later, be it way in the future, whose responsibility is it? Should it be part of the political parties? You know, should it be part of the NGOs, or should it be left to net? Because I think when we look at the history, if we just leave it to net, you know, we will always come back and say the same thing. We will never be ready. Right. So I think it should be everybody's responsibility. Thank you.
Thank you, Martin. Thank you. So let's start with Martin's question. And I wanted to ask Mr. Gay, because he's part of the CPP, because even what you said, Joekai, before that, or too much emphasis is on the election, is because we've made it that way, right? Politicians or candidates are not interested in the referendum, which is even more critical than just your election. So let's start with Martin's question on whose role it is. Should it be just the government, like we discussed the other day with that the Ministry of Information, or should political parties and groups like GAME and also groups like Focus on Liberia be involved? Let's start with that and work our way backwards.
Right. So that's a critical question. That's very, very important. Let's indicate here that the NEC also has a responsibility to develop the strategy for civic education and voter education. Those are two different education activities that's supposed to happen at the same time. Voter education is on the steps, the procedure, the polling process, and everything, who to vote, who not to vote, and everything, where they should vote, how they should vote, and everything. The NEC is fully responsible. Civic education is about citizens understanding their responsibilities in these kind of matters, for example, amending the Constitution. What role did she play? Why did she play the role? What's the significance of the amendment or revision of the Constitution? It is the right of the government to ensure that. GAME has repeatedly said that we have never had such national mechanism in place. When we say national mechanism, we are talking about a structure. We are talking about an institution of government, a national institution that will educate citizens across the country about all these critical constitutional matters that empower them as citizens to be able to understand their constitution and play roles that will make them patriotic and make them productive. So the government has a responsibility to do that. Because of the absence of that national mechanism, that is why the Elections Commission has been taking on the responsibility to do it. And the Elections Commission has only been doing it partially, sometimes very insignificant because they can overstretch. There are capacity issues, there are logistical issues. So the Elections Commission has been filling in on an occasional basis. That is not enough, Dennis, to educate the old lady way in Boganjide about issues that they're supposed to be voting on. And referendum is an issue-based election, like Dr. Urey said. It's not a official election where you go see the face of the individual, even if you didn't know that they were taking part in the election. But just by looking at the ballot paper and seeing Dennis' face, you can say, oh, but I know this guy. I think it's better for me to vote this guy. It's not like that with referendum. You have to know the symbols long ahead of time. You have to know the text or the script that is supposed to be associated with the symbol to vote for. So the government mechanism that's supposed to be in place is supposed to educate citizens on everything. However, in the absence of that mechanism, when we agree to postpone the referendum and hold it as a single issue, the Elections Commission will then be able to have sufficient time to develop the strategy. And when they declare campaign open, the political parties can campaign. The candidates can campaign for the issues. The political parties can campaign for the issue because that is legal. It's strictly with NEC guidelines, officially opening or declaring campaign for the referendum. So everybody can, the civil society organization can go ahead, the political parties can go ahead, the candidates can go ahead to do it. NEC herself will have her own civic education mechanism in place, putting off flyers, posters, the mass media approach. They will do it. So everyone is responsible to do that. Once we agree to hold a referendum as a single issue, everyone is supposed to do mass education on the referendum for people to be able to understand and then to move them to be able to vote. So that's how we can treat Martin's question about who can actually provide education awareness campaign for the referendum. Everybody can do it, but it has to be done under the guidelines provided for by the Elections Commission. And that will be declared officially by the Elections Commission.
Then
so,
the other question, let me just list them before you go into them.
Yeah, I wrote those questions. I just wanted to talk about the incorporation. He talked about incorporating us under the dual citizen aspect, talking about incorporating us. I didn't know the us you were referring to, if they are diaspora Liberians. What I want to say is that we also run the risk of not even having dual citizen to pass if we should combine the referendum and the election. So there's a risk right there. It's possible that there will be a general low turnout, and because of that low turnout, there will be a high likelihood that the proposition in question he's talking about that will incorporate him to be part of the system or the process may not even pass, may not even receive the 2/3 votes. That's one of the fears. And we have to take this seriously, that those 3 propositions may not even pass. And it will be a risk if they don't pass, because reintroducing them again in another referendum in the future will be difficult. No one is going to be paying attention to that anymore. Because especially say it was an issue in this referendum that did not pass, no one is going to be paying attention to that. Let me give you the number as we discuss further. In 2011, we had 1.7 million registered voters. A little over 615,000 voted in the referendum. None of those 4 proposals received 2/3 of the vote. And that was the highest. You may even find less number of people voting in this referendum because the NEC is not even having the money currently as we speak. They are not even talking about the symbols as we speak. They are not even talking about the text associated with the symbol as we speak. They have not even gone halfway of the consultation for citizens to suggest what the symbol should look like before they can talk about coming up with one agreement. Ballots have not been produced yet. We are in a better position to postpone this referendum and concentrate on reversing the Constitution as a single issue and get a better result from it compared to having it now with the senatorial election. And it will become a distraction. The referendum will become a distraction. So that's what I can say to Martin. The other two questions I can let Dr. Urey look at.
I think that, yes, the first caller talked about how we shouldn't talk about, he agreed with us that this one should not be combined, but going forward, it could be combined. That's a legitimate argument. It's not a problem. We're not saying every referendum in the future should be a standalone event. We're just saying because this one is so heavy, and because we're asking for further work to be done on the Constitution, looking at the Constitution Review Commission, what they did based upon that, this one should be a standalone, which our caller clearly agree with us. Yes, in other countries, yes, sometimes referenda are combined with general elections, but it depends on the preparation of the citizen. In Liberia, clearly we are not prepared at this point, and we don't want this to go forward. It began a failure. If it began a failure like 2011, it's a waste of resources, it's a waste of money. And like to Josiah's point, to have them reintroduced began very difficult because it failed. If all the thing failed, how do you reintroduce it, right? And not in the short term, you look at maybe 10 years or more before you can come back to it. And we don't want that. So that's why we're saying let it be a standalone. I mean, on the question of who responsible or what a political party can campaign for issues based in the referendum, clearly, yes, political parties are Liberians and every Liberian has the right. It began bit attention though. That's one of the points that this one is so critical because if political parties, people who are running are so much against one another, one thing they might also go against is everyone's view, right? And because I'm so much, I don't want anything good for you. I want to disagree with you on everything to show contracts that I'm better than you. I might also disagree with you on the issue of the proposition of the referendum, and that's really further confuses the public, right? And then it might just impact the turnout, and they might become a failure. We don't want it. We are not here to campaign for or against the issues in the referendum. That's not what we are here for. We are saying the timing is not right. When we get to that point, clearly again will be able to articulate her own view about the issues.
So the two other questions that your caller raised was the response from the senator and
right, from the legislature.
Also, Jimmy asked about your idea of coming up with the configuration of the CRC, of a new CRC. Address those. Our time is fast spent, so we can wrap things up.
And then let me get jump quick on that part, the political will. I think he specifically stated, somebody stated is there the political will. We are asking for the political will to be there. If they are not there, we are asking and we are demanding political will now on behalf of Liberia. Because lack of political wills for the last 173 years, you see where the country is today compared to other countries in the sub-region and our age compared to other countries similarly situated like us. We are asking for political will. If the political wills are not there, we will be demanding, and we are asking and demanding that the political will be there. Because without the political will, it will not be done. And it has to be there. So I would like JJ to comment on the response from the lawmakers.
Yeah. Anthony, you are right. That's a very good question, a fair question. The legislature as a body has not responded in terms of giving us acknowledging receipt of our requests. They have not done that yet formally. And we hold them in high esteem. Like I said, they are the representatives of the people. It is our ardent hope that they will do so, that it will just be the best thing to do to write officially that they've received our communication and they are going through. They need to lay out the procedure, how they're going to proceed with it, because this is a national call. This is not a call from one petty organization sitting in a corner and looking for attention. There is nobody on this call here looking for any attention. Nobody associated with GIM looking for attention. We've all created that ourselves. What we're doing collectively now is, in the best interest of our country. And this, like I said, is a national and passionate call. They should see it from that perspective. They should be void of politics. By no means, they should do that because it's in everybody's interest. If we succeed in postponing this thing and shifting our focus 100% to the senatorial election, we will be benefiting in different ways. The Elections Commission will be focused. That way there will be no distraction. They will be able to effectively manage the senatorial election. Two, the management of the senatorial election in a credible way, in a credible fashion, will give us some, indication of what is to come in 2023. That is also critical. The results of a transparent senatorial election will also tell us the people, the caliber of candidates elected to the Senate, and how lawmaking is going to be for the next period before the 2023 election. This is critical, like I said. GAME looks at this, considers this very critical to the enhancement of our failing democracy.
Let's look at the new CRC. Who should be there?
Again, the executive always has the responsibility to constitute a draft constitution committee. And I know exactly where the fear of Jimmy comes from. The 1986 Constitution, the Amos Sawyer Committee, Dr. Urey knows that very well. He knows that there are several drafts. The Amos Sawyer Committee produced a draft, and that draft had all kinds of things in it. We talk about paramilitary personnel not participating in election, military personnel not doing that. That was strictly against Joe. We know it was revised by a military regime. And smartly so, people like Bagbala told them, they sat down and decided that they should organize another committee called Advisory Committee, Constitution Advisory Committee, where Bianca-Zilli then involved. They put them in Banga for almost 6 months. And every time they thought that they should change certain part of the Amos Sawyer draft, they just send it to them, put enough food and money to their disposal, and they had to change. That's why we're having something like Article 52C in this Constitution, about the residency requirement for candidates should be 10 years, you should be in the country. And it's still ambiguous. It's subject to Constitution, to the Supreme Court interpretation, or the Elections Commission has to set that aside every time we're having elections. These are the kind of things that we're talking about changing. And so he is worried that, again, the political will not be there to do it fairly, that who will be on it. It is the executive that will do it. But again, we hold our legislature responsible to vet these people, to make sure that the people who will be confirmed to be on this committee are people who are credible, people who put the Liberian people interest first, so that the draft that they will produce will meet the aspiration of the Liberian people. That's what we can hope for. GAME will only push. GAME will only push that it should be postponed, it should be held as a single issue, and the draft constitution committee should be constituted. But the executive, when nominating members of the committee, the legislature should make sure that it has a role to play so that the people who are nominated are credible. That's the only thing we can say.
Thank you. Mr. Nyonton, let me come to you. That's my final question, and then we're going to go around the room for your final thoughts. My question here is, you started a process of calling for the postponement. Do you see hurdles in the way, and how you hope that those be mitigated?
Well, the first thing we've seen is the national legislature that have not responded officially to our official communication, and that is concerning.
Does that scare you?
Definitely. I mean, this is an institution-to-institution approach, and so it behooves us that we can receive a response from them in as soon as possible time, because time is not in our favor. And speaking of that, I think that's one of the challenges, and that brings us to the next step as to galvanizing and mobilizing civil society organizations. We have already been receiving calls from those civil society organizations, and we're going to work with them to have an inclusive civil society driven process around this sensitive national issue, so as to amplify the voices of Liberian in different aspects of the Liberian fabric of the Liberian society. And also to continue the media engagement like we are doing here. We hope to engage other platforms, online platforms, and radio and television stations in Liberia, so that Liberians can be informed as to the significance of pushing for the postponement of the referendum.
Well, gentlemen, you guys are well articulate, man. I enjoy it. I like you. I like you guys. I like the message.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
So let's go around the room. Let me hear your final thoughts as we close the broadcast tonight. I think we had a good time. Go ahead. Let's start with Dr. Urey. Your final thoughts.
We want to re-emphasize our point. Our point is very simple. This is a message that we are asking the government of Liberia, primarily the lawmakers, to not combine this year as proposed referendum along with the senatorial election. We have articulated the reasons. There's a possibility of hard failure, which would be waste of resources. There are many issues that need to be addressed that are not even part of this referendum. We're asking that those, let it be postponed so we deal with them one and for all, so we don't do them in piecemeal. We are not arguing for or against the proposition as all laid in the referendum. We are not arguing for. This is not the time we're doing it. When the time comes, we'll be able to give our position on it. But that's the message, and we are asking our lawmakers to pay attention to this for the future of our country. And going forward, that's what we're going to continue to articulate, and we're asking all goodwill people, those in the diaspora and in country, to join us so as to do this. Because one of the reasons why we have had bad governance for so long, we haven't had active citizen engagement. We have had a paternalistic form of governance wherein everybody depends on the government. The gentlemen in studio and those that are not here that we're speaking on their behalf today are not those kind of citizens. This is a citizenry we are trying to educate to hold their people accountable. That we put you there to govern us, you got to govern us the way we intend it to be and the way the Constitution intended to be. So listen to us. If you can, then we're going to hold you accountable. So that greater level of accountability we are seeing here in the United States and other parts of the world. This is the message we're taking to Liberia to change the country. The beginning point, our number one advocacy we're speaking on your show today, we say thank you for allowing us. Let the lawmakers postpone the referendum. It shouldn't be held together with the senatorial election. Then I will say thank you, and thank you to FOL.
Thank you. Before the two gentlemen come in, let me read a few comments from our audience. Jimmy Eastman said, has the Supreme Court weighed in on a referendum or submitted a brief? The Supreme Court has the sole authority of constitutional interpretation. The Supreme Court alone, the authority to invalidate legislation or executive actions. This power of judicial review has given the court crucial responsibility of maintaining living constitution whose broad provisions are continually applied to complicated new situation. There was an attempted referendum by the chair, by Christina Tarr. What good came out of that? Do we have the political will, my people? Sam Waller said, changing the behavior of the electorate in Liberia would not happen based on one cycle of voter education. It would take multiple years. Needs to be part of the educational system and curriculum. No need to stop this referendum. Again, he continued, Liberia's future success depends on the passage of the items on the proposed referendum. There are multiple opportunities to adjust it later. At some point, it needs to move forward as is. Klubo Somo Johnson Ball. That is why GAM want it to be done well, because when it fails, the diaspora Liberian would not have this opportunity you just named, Colin. Dave Jar says, sadly, we depend on those incompetent and corrupt institutions and government to do the right thing. This is wishful aspiration. Jude O. Nwanwe Jr. said, I think it should be the legislators and NEC responsibility to provide voters education. There are too many gullible and ill-informed individuals in our country who vote without even knowing their candidate's platform and stands on pertinent national issues. William King said, money will come from the international community. We still have 3 months. That's a lot of time. Those are a few, and then the last comment I will read is from Joe Cassell, said, when a third of Liberia's GDP comes from the country's diaspora via remittances, and the yearly remittance is more than the revenue collected by government, it goes without saying that the diaspora is critical to wealth creation, prosperity, and the overall stability of Liberia. That said, the referendum should go ahead. I don't think the panelists have made an airtight case for cancellation of the upcoming date for the referendum. Joe, you got your work cut out there. Let's get your final comments. And if you can use that time to spend just 1 minute and respond to those comments.
No, I want to say to those who ended up with the statement that the referendum should go ahead, we're now also critical in their thought, especially everything that we have said here and the justification we've made here so firmly, so clearly. They also run the risk. They need to understand that the country also run the risk of not even having any of those. I will repeat that, not even having any of those 3 propositions receiving the required 2/3 votes. That's the part they don't understand. As far as they know, once you say referendum, sadly, that's the understanding. When you say referendum, you put the issue out, is compelling for all the issues to pass. No, people have to vote for those issues, and each of those issues has to receive 2/3 votes as required by law. So they're missing that aspect. Those that made those comments, they need to go back and revisit that. We cannot allow this referendum to go ahead with the election. As we repeat it, it's going to be a distraction. It's going to lose its meaning. It's going to be a side issue. It's going to be brushed aside, and obviously it will not receive the required 2/3 votes. Having said that, let me take off this time to say thanks much to the FOL family for this great opportunity. I know that the time we spent here was very meaningful. There are many Liberians who will not be having a second thought about this referendum issue. We encourage all of them to join us, well-meaning Liberians. It's not just the legislature waiting for them to respond. Start calling your representatives and your senators, Liberians. Start calling your representatives and your senators. Begin to visit their offices and remind them about this call. You need to compel them to look into it and respond positively, because this is about the future of our country. If we should guarantee a just society in Liberia with the tenets of fair play, equality, and justice, this is going to be contingent upon the appropriateness of the law. And the way we will make our law appropriate, the way we will revise our constitution to meet our aspiration, is for the legislature to postpone this referendum and consider the holding of a referendum to adopt a new constitution, a revised constitution. That's what GAME is calling for. So postpone it. We shift our focus 100% to the senatorial election. We conduct it effectively, and we all enjoy the results. So that's our call to the legislature, our encouragement to the Liberian people, our fellow compatriots, to join us to do that. That way, we will encourage patriotism and productivity in our society, thereby lifting the economic standing of each Liberian. That's the best security that we need, and that's what GAME is calling for. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Nyonton, you got the last word.
Well, in the absence of political will, I think this is the first step to generating public enthusiasm. And so we want to encourage civil society organizations and well-meaning Liberians to join this call. It's a passionate call to save our emerging democracy. And then we also want to call on the national legislature to take our call seriously. It just takes a resolution that meets 2/3 majority in the national legislature to postpone the current pending referendum. Let's learn from history. Let's learn from the experience of 2011 and do the right thing in the best interest of our country. I want to say thank you, Dennis, for having us, and thanks to your many listeners for following.
And thank you so much. I enjoyed the interaction. We want to say, let's see and come back and tell me how it all worked out, how everything plays out. If you will come back and eat your own words, please do that. Or you come back with a victory dance, we'll be happy to listen to you again. Again, thank you so much for coming. I want to thank our viewers, all those who participated, all those who contributed. We really appreciate you. It's because of you that we continue to do what we do. Tomorrow at this time, we're going to be having a debate. Not this time, 6 o'clock tomorrow, we're going to be having a debate on the referendum itself. vote yes or no. There's one person who said vote no to everything, and then another one said not so fast. So we're going to be having a debate right here on Focus on Liberia. Then the following week or Saturday, we're going to have Councillor Vani Sherman to come and explain about the referendum. And I want you guys to be here. Call in and ask Councillor Sherman why you think we need to have the referendum. He's part of those who put this together. So that's what we have in store for you. Also tomorrow, we're going to have our Q&A section with the Deputy Press Secretary to the President, Mr. Smith Tobe. You don't want to miss it. Here at Focus on Liberia, we educate, we elevate, and promote all things Liberia. Again, thank you so much for coming. Game, we like what you are saying. People are saying this is another political party, and we have so many of these organizations. They have come and gone. So time will tell, and after some time, come back. Let's see how you're doing. We want to have a health check of this organization. Until then, remember, COVID-19 is still real now. Take all the precautions, get your mask, observe all the protocols. And before we leave, we're going to leave you with one song that we always like to play. We are all Liberians. You see, Dr. Sawyer once described Liberia as a mosaic. This is like a map, a picture with many colors, many sizes, many pieces. And unless we all come together, if one piece is removed, if Bapolu is not there, or if Glay is not there, or Fisibu in Lofa is not there, Liberia is not complete. So unless we have every piece of that mosaic, we have Liberia. Although we may approach our policy issue differently, our political issue differently, it does not mean one person is more Liberian, or you love Liberia more than the other, or hate Liberia more. It's all because we are different. That's why we are looking at things differently. But we are all Liberians. And the only way we can move forward is if each of us play our part, so that Liberia will be that glorious land of liberty that we sing about in our national anthem. Until then, my name is Dennis Jah, wishing you all a good and godly night. Shalom.
We are